On your radio show last night, you talked about Turnover Thursdays. That's part of the 8 weeks of summer activities, correct?
No, no turnover Thursdays.
Correct. Okay. But that's a summer activity that you do the no turnover.
Yeah, yeah. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Thursdays, no turnover Thursdays. We combine that with 4 and 4. We put our guys in teams of four. I always start off with you're allowed 3 turnovers because they all come in turning it over. I could have had some of them. I should have gave them 10, um, but you're allowed 3. And so I use each turnover as a way to teach them how to read the defense or hit the single. All these kids come from programs where, um, and don't take this the wrong way, but most of them come from programs that you know turnovers are going to happen. It's just part of the game. Whereas I think a better way to teach the game of basketball is to make the right reads. Whereas that's why I use the analogy Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady. Both great quarterbacks, both high IQs, both do it the way that's successful for them. But a high risk pass, the probability of that pass being deflected or intercepted or turned over, um, there's a higher probability of that happening than just moving it to the next open man and letting him make the next pass. So, we're always putting the defense into areas where potential bad passes can occur. For instance, if you beat your man and the defense comes running at you, and now you're playing 1 versus 2. Your man is trailing, and the other defender's coming. What's the right play? High school, because they're scores, they tend to try to split those two guys and either throw up a vomit shot or turn it over. Whereas when teams are helping off the corner, sometimes you drive 2 pass and you will get this shot in the corner because you made the right play. That's part of what those Thursdays are about.
And how has that evolved over the last few years now that you have these summer activity times?
Practice times.
Yeah.
Um, well, one of the reasons why we're not turned over as much this year is we're playing with 2 point guards. Don't underestimate the importance of that. Kingston and Milos. Kingston turned the ball over a lot, but Kingston was kind of like that. He's kind of like a gunslinger. He's going to start chucking it and trying to hit it. But I always knew once Kingston learned how to slow down and make the right reads and appreciate a a pass that's a boring pass, a dull pass, just the right play. The right play, sometimes people don't really pay attention to uh, uh, how efficient a team is until you start reading their stats. We've always been really efficient here. Um, but Quentin's first year here, he was a turnover guy. If you look up the box score of our game at South Carolina in Columbia that year, if I'm not mistaken, I think he had around 25 points and 7 turnovers. So he was a work in progress. With By the end of the year, he had improved a lot. Marcus was a turnover guy. Dejan was a turnover guy. Um, Jamal was a really high turnover guy. But that's always been one of our staples, you know. Um, I certainly don't have all the answers when it comes to coaching basketball, but I do know the importance of playing good, solid team defense, the importance of rebounding both ends, and the importance of taking care of the ball. I mean, that's been my holy trinity um, for years for every school I've ever coached at. That didn't start here. We were like that in other places. But Sometimes your personnel is the best they can do is maybe 12 turnovers. I've had teams that they turned it over 12 times. I thought that was good. Um, but, as a coach, you evolve too. Um, we've got more guys that can beat you off the bounce. Kingston's a lot of guys shoot their turnovers. We played against teams that turn the ball over against us, not because um, anything we're doing that's really special. It's just that the other team's guards turn it over a lot. And then sometimes they don't turn it over, they'll just shoot a bad shot. And so that's another part of teaching here is shot selection. If you take good shots, if you take care of the ball and you rebound, there's three ways right there to be efficient on offense. Some people have a terrible misconception that offense should be the way Pete Carril ran it at Princeton, where you're out tricking people with fancy plays. I don't think we've ever lost to a team that runs tricky plays against us.
Thank you, Ryan. We'll go to Chris Baldwin with Paper City, Houston, please. Chris, please go ahead.
Hey, Kelvin, good morning.
Good morning.
What have you seen from PJ Hagerty with this particular team? And, still putting up a lot of numbers, obviously.
Well, PJ's always been, even when he played here in high school, LaRon Barnes, who played for me here my first year, um, was the assistant coach at his high school. And he's always been a very confident young man, always been a gifted scorer. Um, he was in a great situation last year. I don't remember, where did he go out of high school? What school did he sign with?
I think Tulsa.
Yeah, that's right. He went to Tulsa, then he went to Memphis, right? And now it's Kansas State.
Hmm.
So that's the way he played in high school. It's the way he played at Tulsa. It's the way he played at Memphis. The way he's played here. So you're not seeing anything different. That's just who he's always been. He's always been a kid that could really score the ball, um, scores mentality. He gets you up on shot fakes, gets you to foul him. He's going to score in transition. I think he's made himself a better shooter. So PJ's always been a talented kid.
Thank you, Chris. We'll go to Daniel Contreras from the Cougar. Daniel, please go ahead with your question for Coach Sampson.
How's it going, Coach Sampson?
How's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. I just wanted to ask a couple questions about the different causes that you've supported. We've seen you support many of them, like child literacy and Coaches Against Cancer during the Cincinnati game, and then the end racism on a different game. I forget which one. But how do you feel these causes affect you personally, and how do you think they've affected everyone on the team?
We're fortunate as head coaches that we have these platforms to be able to help other people. Um, and I think if you take the time to learn about the cause, um, like I've been heavily involved in Coaches versus Cancer and the American Cancer Society. Um, at every school I've coached at. Um, from when Norm Stewart developed stomach cancer on his way to an Oklahoma game from Missouri back. Billy Tubbs was the coach at Oklahoma then, and that was the birth of Coaches versus Cancer because of Norm's experience. And then Jim Boeheim had an issue with prostate cancer. So now prostate awareness and early prostate checks became a something that we pushed through the education we got from the American Cancer Society. Lon Kruger, the great coach from different schools, I think his last stop was Oklahoma, has a uh, golf tournament, and I've honestly tried to get to it, but I just haven't been able to. But he raises a lot of money for Coaches versus Cancer. Mark Few um, at Gonzaga, he has a gala, a ball. Uh, where he raises a lot of money. I know Jay Billis has been on me to come to that. I'm not sure if he still has it, but he used to do great with it. But I applaud my fellow coaches for getting involved in these causes and helping other people. I think at the end of the day, that's the the genesis of what coaching is you don't coach for yourself. You coach to help others. Then when you have opportunities, whether it's in child literacy, like when we were at Oklahoma, I think once a week for a long time, um, we went out and read books um, to the elementary schools. And I remember I started off every one of my sessions with um, reading is to the mind as exercise is to the body. It's just emphasizing the importance of reading. And it doesn't matter what you're reading. You increase your vocabulary or improve your vocabulary just by reading, whether it's a comic book, whether it's a literature book, whether it's a sports book, whether it's a action hero book, you're reading. And so that became our mantra through child literacy. And then with racism, that's an easy support for me because I grew up in segregation. And, it's something that we have to continually work at and have conversation about, just as a reminder of what's going on in our society. And sometimes those conversations can be uncomfortable, but you can't be afraid to stand up for the right thing.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, Daniel. We'll go to Joseph Duarte from the Houston Chronicle. Go ahead, Joseph.
Hey, good morning, Kelvin.
Good morning, Joe.
Kelvin, are you familiar with that next generation glass 4 LED technology that they're going to use at the Big 12 tournament?
Brett called me about it in the fall and sent me some information about it, and I looked at it, and I thought it was something that could bring some awareness about the direction we're going with the Big 12. I think there's two times there's I've always been an advocate for experimental rules being used on foreign trips in the summer for scrimmages, exhibition games, non-conference games, but also conference tournaments. Conference tournaments are what they are. They're money makers, but it's also an opportunity for teams that are on the bubble to win a game or two to get to the tournament. So the last thing that I would want to do, and I express this, is just make sure we're not disrespecting the game. The game is more important than any of us. We're here because of the game. But the way it was presented to the coaches was this is, the next wave. This is new. And after somebody told me what the NIL was 2 or 3 years before it started, you learn to pay attention a little bit more now when they come up with new ideas. Because who knows, in 5 years, this may be what everybody's doing. I think there's a lot of curiosity about it, Joseph. I think there's a lot of, what's it going to look like? But, we've been playing on a floor that looks like somebody shedded a snake skin for the last 2 years. So why not play on this floor? But I applaud Brett Yormark for continually pushing the envelope, for establishing new boundaries, for creating, a perception of the Big 12 that we're not afraid of new ideas. And I think as you get older and whatever you do, being able to evolve is being able to accept that things will change. And sometimes you just need to be on the cutting edge. And that's not always a bad thing.
Thank you, Joseph. We'll go to Cameron Alberigo from the Cougar One Sports. Cameron, please go ahead.
Hi, Coach Sampson.
Hi, Cameron.
I just wanted to ask you if you had any favorite Valentine's memories or maybe gifts from the past or anything along those lines.
Thank you for saying that. You reminded me. You saved me today. Um, so I grew up with three sisters. I had an older sister, a twin sister, and a younger sister. And my mother worked a lot of 12-hour shifts. But I remember every Valentine's Day, she would get each one of us a card um, and a little box of candy and something else. But she always made sure she did that for us. And I always thought Valentine's Day was for the girls, but my mother would always get me a Valentine's Day gift. So um, I don't know that I'm the best at that stuff. Um, I try never to forget it to make sure that you show the people that you love you're thinking of them. But I always think of my mother because she did a great job of making sure that her children um, um, knew the importance of those things. And of course, I've always had an affinity for candy bars. So Butterfinger, Baby Ruth, Milky Way were kind of my go-tos back then. So uh, you know, and then those little what do you call them? The little hearts with the notes on them. You know what I'm talking about? Where it says "Be my Valentine." You know what I'm talking about? Those little candy
The
things.
conversation hearts, I think
Yeah, yeah,
they're
yeah,
called.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks, Cameron. It's always good to talk to people smarter than you. Um, but we in school you'd have these secret Valentines, right? So you could make a Valentine's out to a girl. And I remember doing that in elementary school. Um, so yeah, um, I always make sure that I do the Valentine's Day thing. After you've been married 46 years, there's a tendency to focus on not forgetting it over what you get. So I hope that came out the right way.
Thank you, Cameron. We'll go to Chancellor Johnson, please. Chancellor, please go ahead, sir.
Hey, good morning, Kelvin.
Good morning, Chancellor.
There was a moment during the BYU game where the refs may have missed a call, and of course, we know that happens. And you were able to voice your displeasure without, crossing the line or anything like that. I'm curious, when you look back when you first got into coaching, what was that process like for you learning to, be able to say what you needed to say, without, costing, if you want to talk, costing the team? And what are some of the tips and tricks that, you might have, whether it's having a relationship with the ref or whatever case might be to be able to do what you need to do as far as voice your displeasure and, as I mentioned, not crossing the line.
Well, I wasn't very good at it when I first started. Um, I got kicked out of at least twice. I got kicked out of a game in Canada when I think one of the refs worked at the local hardware store. The other guy was a Army recruiter from a little strip mall. And the other guy, well, back then there was only two referees. So most of the referees you have in NAIA, you know, don't get me started on that. I think my first or second time at Pauley Pavilion at UCLA, I got ejected. That's a long time ago. But sometimes you coach at schools that referees are human beings too. A lot of them don't think you're going to win, and they referee accordingly. You say, well, they would never do that. Uh, well, that's debatable. But I think the refereeing today is 100 times better than it used to. Every conference has a officiating commissioner, if you will. In the Big 12, it's John Higgins, who I think does a good job. Um, I've never been one of those coaches that if I felt like the officials didn't do a very good job, I didn't spend a lot of time calling to complain, because I'd always say that, we could have played better. We missed free throws, or we missed this, or we missed that. And when the game's over and the officials had made a call that you felt changed the game at that time, I didn't understand what complaining about it would do other than vent. And then there's been times when I had to enact the 24-hour rule with myself that, I'm not now. I'm gonna wait till I watch the film, because after the game I was heated. Um, um, but they're going to miss plays. I think one of the toughest plays for officials to officiate is real-time goaltending. We had one happen in I think the Purdue game, one happened in the Florida game, and the other one the other night, and they were all clearly goaltending. The one the other night was clear as day to me. But my angle might have been different than his. But you hope that at the end that game, that call didn't cost you. And as far as how to talk to officials, I think the key for me is don't bitch about every call. Um, you know, I only try to voice my displeasure if I think I'm right. Um, that's why we win a lot of our challenges. We had one the other night against Utah. And my first instinct is, they called I can't remember who the referee was, but he gave the ball to Utah, and clearly it went off Utah. Um, so I said, challenge it. I don't even think I turned around and looked at our bench. I just challenged it. And they said, you want to challenge it? I said, yes. And so they went to the monitor and it was off Utah. So they gave the ball back to us, but they're going to miss calls. I'm not going to coach a perfect game either. So I try to hold them accountable, um, but a lot of times you just hope that um, they call a fair game, and um, and I've always tried to give referees a benefit of the doubt. I've had some great relationships with referees over the years, and they still miss calls that I get on them about. Um, but I just know how tough that is. And I've never been anti-officiating. I've just been anti-bad calls.
Thank you, Chancellor. We'll go back to Daniel Contreras, please. Daniel, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Just another question regarding tomorrow's Kansas State game. Your team was one of the 5 selected teams to host an event called the One Piece Voyage. How do you feel about being one of those schools that were selected?
Um, um, I'm not sure, Daniel, that I know enough about it to comment.
Okay.
So I'll just claim ignorance. I know Lauren would probably be a better person to answer that. I'm sorry, but I just don't know enough about it to comment.
Thank you, Coach.
You bet.
Thank you, Daniel. We've got time for 2 more questions. We'll go to Chris Baldwin for the first one, please. Chris, go ahead.
Calvin, you talked about talking, being on a call with Izzo yesterday before your radio show. What does it mean to have a guy that you came up with, and I think roomed with working summer camps, you know, in the game that you can still bounce things off of, and that relationship? What does that mean to you?
Um, well, we were both GAs under Coach Heathcote, and so we have a lot of stories. Um, Sometimes we talk about that, but um, I had a radio show last night at 7, so I think I got back up to the office about 6:15 or so, and he was just calling about the Hall of Fame thing, and we got talking about different things. Inevitably, we'll start talking about something in the 80s or 90s and compare it to now, and then you realize we're just um, old guys that came up a certain way. Um, when we came up, you had great relationships with your peers. But I think recruiting has changed all that, and the way the rules work with NIL. I think coaches in general are probably more adversarial today than they were when Tom and I were coming up. But you're still respectful of each other. Like and maybe it's because of my age. And I could be completely off base with that too, but it doesn't appear to me that the closest coaches are as close today as they used to be. Um, um, there was a lot of summers when you look up and it would be me and Bob Huggins or um, um, John Beeline or guys that we coach against each other our whole careers, and so we see each other as friends. I've had a lot of great friends in the coaching profession. Um, I have a lot of acquaintances now, but maybe not a lot of great friends. But most of my friends that I came up with, they're all retired or they've moved on. They're not coaching anymore. But I've learned a lot from the younger coaches. They a lot of them are way smarter than I am, and I've enjoyed watching a lot of the things that they do. I've read about some of the things that they do. I see what they do on tape. So, um, I think one of the keys to longevity in this business, Chris, is being humble, knowing that you don't have all the answers, and that being able to learn and to keep growing in this game, I think requires you to be humble. Because if you're humble, you're able to learn and see how other people do it. It might be better than the way you do it. That doesn't mean that you have to lose your individuality or lose your personal core principles, our Holy Trinity, for instance. But there's a lot of things you can learn. But the biggest thing um, is just the relationships. I hear a lot from Calipari and Izzo and Barnes and uh, Tubby Smith loves to watch our games. Tubby calls me a lot. Um, so, um, but it's been awesome watching these young guys come in and put their stamp on their programs, and a lot of them we play, a lot of them I see when I watch college games on TV, and same thing with the young guys in the NBA. I think coaching in the game, even though a lot of us older guys are on our way out. Um, but I think the game's in the best shape it's ever been, as far as being able to establish new boundaries, establish new norms, and being able to learn from other guys. And then the day, it's great for the game, and the game's more important than any of us.
And our last question of the day will go to Joseph Duarte, please. Go ahead, Joseph.
Kelvin, with a player like Kingston that's so involved in everything that y'all do on the court, when you get to this time of year and it's late and you played teams multiple times and there's more film, has there been anything you've told him or adjustments in terms of how he has to approach things now that people have an idea or have seen more of him as the season's gone on in
Um,
relation to how they
yeah,
guard him?
yeah, no, no, that's a good question. Yeah, for sure. Um, you know, the Kingston, nobody knew about Kingston, and when we were recruiting him, nobody knew about him when he signed. Um, you know, most people that don't know what they don't know draw conclusions and put periods at the end of the sentences way too soon. But that's never going to change. But the Kingston the February Kingston is not the same Kingston as the November Kingston. But I had kind of planned for that. I mean, obviously, I knew how good he was. Did I think he was going to be one of the top 3 or 4 or 5 guards in the country? I don't know. I never thought about it. You don't think about a lot of the questions I get asked. I've never really thought about it because I never thought it was important to even think about that. So why would I think about it, right? But teams have changed how they're guarding. I mean, Kingston's a high IQ kid. A lot of things that I will talk to him about. Um, I like for them to talk. So I'll ask him the questions that he needs to articulate to me what he's seeing. I see it on film, but I want to see what he's thinking when he's doing what he's doing. Now, if they play like this, Kingston, what would you do? And so I'll show him a clip from November, then I'll show him a clip from, say, this last road trip. And he's doing it differently. But a lot of credit for that goes to Kingston. He's pretty smart. He knows how to adjust. I think the thing we all worry about with freshmen this time of year is the collectively the body of work that he's put in from June to now. His high school season would have long been over. Like I don't think you're allowed to start practice in high school practice here in public schools until early November. So with us, we start practicing, quote unquote, practicing in June. So, and Kingston hasn't missed, he may have rolled an ankle here or there, but for the most part, he never misses practice. Um, so, you worry about it a little bit, or you get concerned a little bit about the wear and tear. And as a coach, you're always balancing, keeping them fresh, making sure that they're ready to go with the minutes. Certain guys are going to play more minutes than others. You're always having that internal conversation with your team, but you don't plan that. You just react to it. I've coached a lot of teams. I've coached a lot of freshmen, but the usage rate for some is different than the others. So you have to just continually adjust. I mean, I can watch them in practice, watch their body language, watch how they're reacting from drill to drill or from activity to activity, whatever it is we're doing. But for the most part, Kingston's basketball IQ, he'll figure things out. Sometimes he overthinks, and you have to remind him that basketball is a pretty simple game. If you make simple plays, you'll eliminate most mistakes.